Would like to welcome everybody. A special edition of Iowa Hawkeyes Live, a pregame edition as we talk about Iowa's contest versus the Illinois Fighting Illini tonight. We're jumping on here just about a half an hour after the news broke that Keegan Murray will play tonight, or is expected to play. I should say that. Let me make sure that's clear. Keegan Murray is expected to play tonight, so that's a big time development for Iowa. Of course, he was expected to play against the likes of Purdue, and that didn't happen either. So, again, Keegan Murray is expected to play. I'm going to pop this up on the screen so anybody that jumps in here is aware. All right. Yes, this is the developing story. Keegan Murray expected to play tonight against Illinois. He was expected to play against Purdue, but of course had to opt out due to an ankle issue. And so, good news for the Hawkeyes is they get him back tonight, which is huge. If you're wondering why I don't have my backdrop behind me, um, you may not have heard our show last night. We, of course, the post game show for the Big Ten title game, we were out of town, and the backdrop is sort of finicky to get set up and taken down. So, forgive me for having just the plain black backdrop that's not even wide enough to cover my entire screen. We'll get the backdrop back up tonight and have it for tomorrow. Of course, we have Iowa Live tomorrow with Mark Rogers over at Iowa, the voice of college football. So, we'll talk Iowa, Kentucky, the Citrus Bowl, react to the Big Ten title game, although I think a lot of Iowa fans want to kind of move on from that, which is understandable, myself included. But we will be with Mark Rogers tomorrow night at 4:30 p.m. Central Time over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football here on YouTube. But again, Keegan Murray expected to play tonight, going up against a Fighting Illini squad that has struggled at times but is starting to find its groove. The big news earlier tonight, or earlier today, I should say, was the news that Andre Curbelo would be out. All right. So, again, this is nothing official from the University of Illinois, although this is reportedly from head coach Scott Underwood. And of course, Iowa fans have had their share of experiences against Andre Curbelo. But again, he will be out. The Puerto Rican guard for the Illini, who has been very effective and is a terrific ball handler for Illinois. Of course, they're already down Ayo Dosunmu from last year, so Trent Frazier is the man tonight. I would expect Trent to garnish maybe 35 to 40 minutes. Again, they have some depth at guard, but boy, Illinois has really. I'll say this about Scott Underwood, and I'm not a huge Scott Underwood fan, but man, he has really seemed to perfect the length, athletic type of. I don't want to call them point forwards, but everybody on that team can handle the ball besides maybe Kofi Coburn from outside, and that's sort of the way college basketball has evolved, anyways. But with Grandison, and obviously last year they had Miller, he transferred out. Certainly Trent Frazier. DeMonte Williams is back. It seems like that guy's been here forever. Of course, he's famous for the up close and personal little spout with Connor McCaffrey a couple of years ago. So this is a talented Illini squad. Don't let the loss of Dosunmu and now Curbelo being out tonight against Iowa fool you. This is a team that just beat Rutgers by like 35 the other night. And that's a Rutgers team that, yeah, they dealt with some transfers, but there's no reason to think that that's not an impressive victory to blow out any Big Ten team by that much. And again, it's a Big Ten team that's got Geo Baker back. They've got Ron Harper Jr. back. And yet, it was a dominating performance by Illinois. What did I say, Kevin? Did I say Scott Underwood? Who the heck is Scott Underwood? Scott Underwood. I know who Scott Underwood is. And you'll have to validate this. Scott Underwood is the drummer, or was the drummer for the band Train. I have no idea why I said Scott Underwood. Thank you, Kevin. Brad Underwood, not Scott Underwood. Brad Underwood. Yes, a lot of credit to that guy. Of course, he comes over from Oklahoma State. Haven't had a lot of success in the dance, but man, he's really turned that program. I mean, John Grosh, everybody kind of thought him, a guy from Ohio and would have some recruiting roots there and just never really worked out. I mean, I love that venue in Champaign. I know Champaign is not a really highly thought of school, or I should say school, a school town, a college town, but he's done a terrific job there. And just think about the talent he's been able to grab. And a lot of these kids are from out of the country. You think about Curbelo, you think about Kofi Coburn. He's had a lot of guys who are from other parts of the country. You think about, is it Omar Payne, the kid from Florida this year? I don't know that he's playing a lot, but they've used the transfer market wisely because they've lost some in the transfer market, but they've also been able to pull international players. And in this day and age, you have to pull out all the stops to succeed, because you look at the likes of Gonzaga and you look at the likes of, even UCLA now, who's really taken a step forward with that Final Four trip last year. You have to be able to go out and get guys from other countries. I'm proud of Fran McCaffrey because he went out and got, I know Philip Rebraca was at North Dakota State last year, but to be able to get him, and again, he has that Serbian game. He's a really hard worker. He's a scrappy player. We've seen that so far. They're going to need that because they don't have a lot of depth at forward or at center. They've got depth at forward. I shouldn't say that, but they don't have depth really past that 3 position. I don't, Keegan and Chris are going to play a lot at the 4 this year. We're already seeing that, but let's be honest. Patrick McCaffrey is a natural 3. Chris Murray is, I think, a natural 3. Keegan, again, is probably your most flexible to play at the 4. But Philip Rebraca is going to have to play a lot of time at the 5 because although Josh Ogundele played well against Purdue, physically he's just not ready yet for 30 minutes a game. It's just not going to happen. And Riley Mulvey is clearly not ready. And I like Riley's game as well. He's got size, he's got length, he's got defensive prowess, but I just don't think he's ready. And that's certainly indicated by the lack of playing time that he's getting so far. So Ray asks a question: what is your prediction for the Big Ten finish for the Hawkeyes? It's far too early, Ray. I did see, just glancing through the records today, that I believe everybody but maybe a couple of teams have played a game already. And the divisions right now are kind of set up the way you'd expect. The teams that have lost that one game are the teams you'd expect to lose, and the teams that have won are the teams you'd expect to win. Iowa's 0-1, of course. So this is a big game tonight. You lose this game and you're 0-2 again. It seems like Iowa always ends up being 0-2 in this first little start to the Big Ten season. And I know that's probably hyperbole. If I look back, I'd probably prove myself wrong. But it just feels like Iowa's always having to climb out of a 0-2 start in the Big Ten. With this team, a young team, I don't know that you want to play from behind as far as record. I mean, are they competing for a Big Ten championship? I think most people would probably say that's not realistic, although these guys are that's their aim, that's their goal. So I would say Iowa reasonably could finish. If this team gels and Keegan Murray stays healthy, you could finish top 5. I know that the preseason predictions, I kept hearing, 9th, 10th in the league. I think that's too low. I think probably right in the middle is somewhere to aim for, 6 or 7. But I think Iowa could finish top 5 if everything falls into place. So far, they're shooting the 3 ball a lot better than I expected them to. Tony Perkins is making a lot of threes right now, at least the threes that he's taking. He's not shooting in a high volume, but he is making a lot of threes. We do have a call here to answer here at our pregame show. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Jared.
Hey, Jared, how are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing okay. We're looking forward to seeing Keegan tonight and sort of turning the page from the weekend that was of college football for Iowa fans.
Yeah, I think we can forget about football at least until the bowl game gets a little closer. But I was just going to say, I feel like although on paper they're 0-1, I feel like that game against Purdue was really a win for the most part. It wasn't a win but you got to be feeling pretty good about that second half showing, because they could have gotten absolutely blown out. And I think the effort in the second half with those other guys, maybe that can build some confidence and moving forward. But
well, absolutely, and to be able to do that, obviously, I know we've said this before, but to be able to do that without Keegan Murray, and somebody asked me after the game, would Iowa have won that game with Keegan Murray? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, potentially. Do I think they
Well,
would have
if
won by
you think
20?
about it, like they were down 7, and it's like, well, Keegan Murray would have scored more than 7. Well, yeah, but I've heard somebody say that, which that doesn't really make sense because obviously Chris got more playing time,
Yeah,
and
it's not. It's you can't play that game where you're saying, well,
yeah,
we had this guy, he's going to score this many points, and that means we don't know what Purdue's mindset was going into that game. I'm not saying Purdue didn't take Iowa seriously, but you have to think, just like I said going into the Michigan game, and I know Michigan fans got angry when I said it, but there is a human element to sports. Like, okay, we find out you're number 2 in the country, you're going to be number 1 come Monday, which they are now. And now Keegan Murray, who's the second or third leading scorer in the country, is out. Don't you think maybe a little bit you sort of take him for granted, or even a part of you? It might just be a subconscious thing going on there, but I just think that's just natural. That's just a human thing to do. And so I'm not taking anything away from what Iowa did, but I don't know. I would not go so far as to say that Iowa would have won with Keegan. I think they would have had a chance to win, and they had a chance to win without him, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, I do think they're going to get Purdue at Carver after this. It just feels like when Purdue comes into town, they're going to want to get revenge on that one. But yeah, you can't say they would have won, but I think also Purdue just didn't make any adjustments in the second half really big. And I think you're right. They weren't really taking them seriously that they were going to come back. So they didn't make any big adjustments. But for the most part, I would say how that game turned out, that was a win in most of our minds.
Well, let's remember too, Jared, that Purdue has had Iowa's number, and it's basically throughout Fran's career. I think the last time I remember them winning in West Lafayette would have been 2016. It was a 15-point comeback for Iowa and found a way to win. That was the Jared Utoff, Woodbury, Gasell years. So they haven't won up there very often. And West Lafayette has been a place for a lot of teams where it's just been a struggle. It's one of the toughest places to play in college basketball. And of course, our post-game co-host Gary Close has talked about that. It's just one of the tougher places in the Big Ten. I will say this too, though, just from a matchup standpoint, I didn't like that game going into it. I mean, I don't normally count Iowa out, but if you listen to my pregame before that game, I said Iowa ain't winning this game. So I was shocked for them to be down 2 with 2 minutes to go, 2.5, whatever it was. Because Iowa consistently gets blown out by Purdue. Not only do they lose, they get blown out by Purdue. And they've gotten beat at home. Some of Iowa's best teams over the past 2 to 3 years have gotten beat at home by Purdue squads that aren't as good as this team. So I agree Iowa's going to be, hoping to exact some friendly revenge on Purdue in January. But I'll say this, if the game were next week, even if Iowa was healthy, I think I'd still pick Purdue. I have a hard time not picking. I have a hard time picking against them at this point. But I think they're the best team in the Big Ten, and I think there's a chance you could call them the best team in the country. I still think Gonzaga and Duke are really good. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from those teams because they've had losses now. But you're right. It's going to be an opportunity, just like this past Friday was an opportunity. Tonight's an opportunity to get a resume-building win somewhat early.
Yeah. I was honestly really surprised they weren't in the top 25 yet. I mean, just considering, I know it doesn't mean much, if anything, especially this early, but I was surprised after the win against Virginia. Granted, Virginia had a couple losses, but that was on the road, and Virginia is one of the toughest places to play. And then only losing to 7 to the new number 1. I was surprised they weren't in the top 25 yet, but a win tonight would go a long way towards making that happen.
Yeah, and I did see that this afternoon that they were receiving votes again. I'm totally fine with them not being the top 25. I did find it sort of odd. At least one voter that tweets out his votes tweeted out last week that he had Iowa in the top 25. And then this week he didn't, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me why you would vote them in the top 25 last week and not this week. I understand that there are other teams that play here and that there's other results happening, but I don't know that you can really take anything away from Iowa based on a win at Virginia and the effort they gave on the road at Purdue. I'm not saying you give them any plus mark next to their name for competing and not winning, but I had a hard time with that reasoning. And again, I don't really care. At this point, it doesn't matter. I mean, do we really want this team to be top 25? I know I don't.
No, I like them flying under the radar at this point. Yeah. I think they're going to catch some people by surprise, some teams by surprise at the end, and I'm fine. I'm completely fine with that. I think last year it really didn't help them, given that they were kind of expected to be a top team in the Big Ten and compete for a Big Ten championship. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but I think I like them flying under the radar.
Yeah, and we're just coming off of an Iowa football season where the team was ranked number 2 in the country mid-season, and we found out how little that mattered. So I'm so sick of rankings, and they just don't mean jack squat. I love how Joe Lunardi, and of course I get sucked into this just like probably everybody else. Joe Lunardi on the ESPN app, it's the first page, field of 68, updated bracketology. We're doing bracketology the first week of December.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's ridiculous, but it is like addictive almost. I mean, you can't help but look at these lists and these rankings, but they don't mean anything.
It's addictive. We got problems in society that if we're relying on bracketology in 4 months before the conference tournaments even start, we're relying on that. We got problems as a society.
Yeah,
but, you're right.
Well, what I mean by addictive is just it pops up on my phone every week. The top 25 is out. Well, I'm going to look at it, of course. It's just
sure.
You're going to look at it. You want to see who's ranked and who's close and who fell. But it doesn't mean anything in football. It really doesn't mean anything in basketball. It all is going to come down to the conference tournaments and seeding, and that doesn't really have anything to do with ranking.
Well, I'll say this, and as it relates to rankings, it's not even the fact that we even have preseason rankings. I've been against that forever. Because, and I tweeted this out last night, perfect example of how stupid rankings are. All right. You got the Michigan Wolverines, who I understand a lot of talent coming back. You got Hunter Dickinson. I mean, it's a good team they've got back, but they have struggled. All right. Now, this is what I tweeted out last night, and I'll get your opinion since you called in. I'll get your opinion on this. Iowa, of course, not ranked, which is, I don't have a problem with that. But you've got Michigan, who was ranked 24 last week, and this was what they had done thus far. They had lost to Seton Hall and gotten blown out by Arizona. Their only wins up until that point were Buffalo, UNLV, Prairie View, and Tarleton. And yet, Michigan was top 25. Now, explain to me how, when you get blown out on a neutral court by the unranked Wildcats of Arizona, and your best win is on a neutral court against Las Vegas, how are you ranked?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you see, it's all based upon perception preseason. All of our rankings, the entire season, is up until at least a certain point if a team gets a marquee win and just explodes up. But it takes time to offset what we've done in our preseason rankings. And it's ridiculous. It's just so stupid. And that's why I've been a big advocate for Mark Rogers over the Voice of College Football, his college football rankings, because they may change. I mean, you may go from being number 1 in the country to being number 20 overnight. That's never, ever going to happen in college basketball, but it should, because week 1, you only have 1 week of sample size, whereas after week 2, you have double the sample size. So it should change that much. But that's the problem. You've got preseason rankings and you've got clickbait that basically influences these rankings. And that's why even though I do look at them, I'm guilty of that. There just is there's really no importance in these preseason rankings or mid-season rankings. Do rankings really matter at all? Do we really care at least in college football, the college football rankings matter because it gives us the gauge of where they're at heading up into the rankings that, of course, decide the playoff. But in college basketball, it's a committee that comes out with the field of 68 in March. What's the point of AP rankings? What do they do?
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's kind of what I was saying, is in basketball especially, they don't mean anything, but they still, like you say, it's just based off of perception mostly. But moving on to the game tonight, I guess I would say I was worried about Coburn, of course, like preseason, just looking ahead to that early season matchup against Illinois. I was thinking, oh, Coburn, that's not going to be good. But honestly, after how they handled themselves against Purdue's 3 really talented big men, maybe it's not such a monumental challenge anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't. Here's the deal: Kofi Coburn is a lot different than either of the big men they face. I'm not saying he's better, but Zach Edey is very talented, big. He's 7'4". He
Yep.
doesn't have the girth of obviously Trevion Williams, but Trevion Williams doesn't have the size of Zach Edey as far as height. So if you're just looking at it from a physical perspective, Kofi Coburn has both. I mean, he's got height, he's got girth. I do believe that I see the comment here from Kevin that Murray, of course, has his ankle wrapped in warm-ups, and he thinks that Hutchinson will keep him under 15. I won't be able to stop Kofi if the Illini don't have a ton of turnovers. It will come down to who shoots the three better. That's not a bad take. I think Iowa's going to throw a lot at Kofi. I do think Josh Ogundele is going to play. He played a lot better on Friday than I think anybody expected, but he's not going to be able to play more than 15 minutes a game. Or I shouldn't say a game. He's not going to be able to play more than 15
16
minutes. What's that? Say that again.
He played 16, right?
Did he? You might be right. He's not going to be able to play more than 15 consistently. Maybe they may.
No, I know that. I'm just He did play 16, I believe, but I mean he was on the court for I think just 5 minutes, and he was just dripping with sweat.
You saw that too.
Gassed already.
Oh, he was. I'm proud of that kid. I'm proud of that kid because he's a big boy and he's lumbering up the court and having to bang with Trevion Williams, and he scored some points. He made a couple free throws. No, he played great minutes. The one disappointment, and you really blame a redshirt freshman for this. I don't think you do, but that jump ball with about 2.5 minutes, Iowa was down 2. And as a missed free throw for Illinois, and Ogundele grabbed the ball, and I don't remember who it was for Purdue, but a smaller guy who was probably in the 6'6" range comes in and wraps the ball up, and had Ogundele just said, "Look, you're a lot smaller than me. I'm taking the ball from you," and ripped that ball away, Iowa would have had the ball down just 2. But instead, Purdue got second chance points out of it and ended up winning the game. That was kind of the possession I thought really separated them. I know Joe Toussaint.
Wait, are you talking about the tie-up where it went to Purdue? Yeah.
That was, you wish Josh Ogundele, and obviously you'd hope that at some point he's going to get strong enough to where he just rips that ball away.
Yeah. Well, he fought really hard. I mean, he was playing his hardest, but yeah, he's just not there yet to where he can play, like you say, any more than 15 minutes. So he's going to need to hold his own tonight and give the best that he can for when he's on the floor. But he's still a huge part of the team. Huge.
Yeah, and to me, it'll be interesting to see if we see any of Riley Mulvey, because Riley, he's playing his hardest as well, but he kind of got at least 1 or 2 plays on Friday. He got schooled, and that's going to happen as a freshman. But I don't know. Do you really want Riley Mulvey banging with Kofi tonight? If you're going to go man to man, if you're going to go man to man, I'd rather Philip Rebracha, even though he's got the size disadvantage. I'd rather Rebracha.
He's undersized, but he doesn't play like it. He does foul a lot, but
that got him in trouble.
Yep.
If he gets in foul trouble early tonight, it could be a different story, because, like I said, I don't know that Iowa is going to be able to play. I just think they're gonna need his physicality against Coburn even more so than they needed it against, Zach Edey. And again, Trevion Williams, I don't know how tall Williams is, but he's not 7 foot. So, I
think he's 6'10".
Yeah, they say they were kind of able to give it away with it, but I think Coburn isn't Coburn like 7'2", 300 or something ridiculous. I mean, he's just a freak athletically. So, we all saw Kofi Coburn abuse Luka Garza in the Big Ten tournament last year.
Yeah,
you remember that? You remember that, caller?
To put it nicely.
Yeah, I mean, I love Luka Garza, but he absolutely abused him on the offensive end.
Yeah.
So
no doubt about it.
Yeah. I think that they're equipped though, and they don't have the size or I should say the experience at the 5. But if they can at least contain him enough and not let him get 30, I like what I saw from Chris on Friday. I think his development's going to be maybe the biggest development as we continue into the season. If he can continue at the rate that he's progressing athletically and just confidence-wise, man, this team can be really good. If Chris Murray is playing if he continues to progress, this team can be really good because I think they've got the pieces. And Tony Perkins has proven he can shoot threes. Aaron Eulis made a three the other night. I mean, guys are not shooting in high volumes, but when they are, they're being efficient with their shot making. So a lot of positives
Yeah.
from Friday, and we'll see what happens tonight.
Yep. And yeah, before I go, I do remember you mentioned that to me preseason. You just said, "Where's the 3-point shooting going to come from?" And I think the answer is everywhere. I mean, you're not having a lot of guys besides like they'll let Sanford, they'll let him chuck up threes, and Bohannon, of course. But everybody else, it seems like they're just taking high percentage looks, and everybody's doing their part, and they're doing enough.
Well, I'll say this before you hang up, caller. As it relates to Jordan Bohannon, that's one thing, one aspect of that game Friday that is frustrating because once again, Jordan Bohannon kind of just got shut down. I mean, he had some open looks
Yeah.
and he just missed. And it can't be feast or famine every night. It can't be he goes for 24 and then he goes for 2. That just can't happen. So, if I'm correct in my memory, Illinois has been pretty effective at shutting down Jordan Bohannon. So if he can get free, again, Trent Frazier is probably going to be. I mean, we'll see what the matchups are. Again, without Curbelo, I'm anxious to see how they defend Bohannon and Toussaint, and then of course you're going to get Perkins and Eulis in there. But I'm anxious to see how they defend that starting 5 without Curbelo. And they've been playing without Curbelo. This is nothing new for Illinois, but it will be interesting to see tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he is a really good defender, isn't that right, Curbelo?
Oh yeah, I think he's one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. Absolutely. So it's a blow. But again, they beat Rutgers by 35 without him. And Rutgers, I haven't watched Rutgers. I'll be honest, I haven't watched Rutgers a ton this season. But of course, they got Baker and Harper, so they have a pretty good backcourt themselves, and they beat them by 35. So I have no doubt that that's a good defensive team, and that's what gives that team a chance to make a run. And I know they dropped out of the top 25, but they've had a lot of injuries too. Frazier's been banged up. I mean, they've had some injuries to overcome. I think Grandison missed some time. So it'll be interesting to see.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see. Go Hawks.
All right. Appreciate the call, Jared. And absolutely go Hawks. And Iowa, of course, about 15 minutes from now. So we'll stay on here and take any comments or questions. Justin, I see Justin on here. He asks, I know we're talking basketball, but in a few short words, how do you feel about the matchup against Kentucky in the bowl game? I think they get the job done. I feel good about the matchup, but you said, how do you, I think he means, he typed fell. How do I feel? I got ripped to shreds last week, right? I got ripped by all those angry Michigan fans for how I felt. So maybe I'm not allowed to say how I feel. I feel good. I'm going to say I don't really care what anybody says. I feel good about the matchup, but I haven't really studied it much. I mean, I know, Justin, I think you were here or over at the Iowa channel last night for our show with Coach Patterson. And I think I said during that show, I feel good about the matchup, but I have not looked at it, and neither has Don yet. We've got time. I mean, I know the Iowa players really aren't even looking at it right now. Kirk talked about that yesterday. They're taking some time off, and I think it's good just mentally, emotionally, physically, certainly. It's been a physical season, especially that defense. So I feel good, but they're going to have to figure out a way to exercise the offensive demons because it doesn't matter who they play. We saw it. Think about it. Iowa went 10-2, which is unbelievable. But if you're not getting 5-6 turnovers in a game like we saw early on, or at least 4, I'm trying to think. I think Iowa State, I want to say they had 4, but I could be wrong. But if you're not doing that, what do you have? Well, the results are going to be either you're going to lose Wisconsin, Purdue, Michigan, or you're going to win by 5 against Northwestern, by 5 against Minnesota. They didn't win by very much against Illinois. I don't remember what the score was, but they didn't win by a lot. Maybe 10. I know there was some garbage points late, and then of course Nebraska, you have to come back from 21 to 6 down. So I guess my point is, if they don't get turnovers in this game, multiple turnovers, they got 2 turnovers against Michigan, it didn't matter. If they can't get multiple turnovers in this game against Kentucky, who I guess, as our caller last night called in and said that Kentucky is a turnover-prone team. If that's the case, if they are a turnover-prone team, you'd expect Iowa to dominate that category. That obviously gives them a very good chance to win. But if they don't win that by a lot, they can lose to anybody. And Kentucky's a very good football team. Mark Stoops is going to have those guys ready. They're disciplined, although, again, I guess they've turned the ball over more than I'd expect of a Stoops team. But that's a good football team. They're 9-3 in the SEC. I know the East is down a little bit with Florida, being pretty bad this year. And certainly the rest of that conference has sort of been, I think, down, in my honest opinion. Of course, you have Georgia, Bama, but LSU's down. Again, Florida's down. Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt. But I still think it's a good team. I would hope Iowa would win. It sucked to end up at 10-4 and a loss to Kentucky. I will say this. If Iowa loses that game, I'm going to be disappointed as an Iowa guy. But I really like Mark Stoops. If you've heard me talk about Mark Stoops, I think very highly of Mark. I think highly of at least two of the Stoops brothers. I really don't know Mike at all. I've never met Mike. I've never met Mark, but Mark just seems to be a little bit more even keeled, and certainly he's sustained success, whereas Mike wasn't able to do that at Arizona. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. I feel good, Justin. We'll see. Again, I'll look at the matchups and watch some Kentucky film throughout this week and into next week, and we'll see what happens. The real Hayden on here as well. He says, not a good crowd tonight. I'm here, and there's not a lot of butts and seats with 7 minutes to go till tip. Not great. If that's the case, what are we doing? And now you say, well, you're a hypocrite. You're not at the game, Corey. You're right. I'm not at the game. Two things. I live in Ames, okay? So I'll be at the game on Thursday right here in Ames, okay, for the record. And the other thing is I host this show, so it's hard for me to go to many games in Iowa City. But if I can tell you this, if I was in Iowa City, I'd be at this game right now. There's no question about it. So that's disappointing. This team deserves a lot of butts and seats. So I hope that changes. Hayden, I'll say this. We've got to realize, too, that it's a Monday. It's an early game. Sometimes there are late. I would say there's going to be late stragglers into the arena. But I think the real Hayden, I think you understand how to judge that, because I think you are, if you're not a season ticket holder, you go to a number of games, is my understanding. So you probably have a good feeling on where we're at 7 minutes to tip off. I don't think it's quite 7 minutes to tip off, Hayden. I think maybe 7 minutes according to your clock in there, but I think we got maybe closer to 10. But yeah, this team deserves a crowd. What they did last week going on the road to Virginia and winning, I know Virginia's not great this year, or they're not playing great yet. But going on the road and winning at Virginia, and then going on the road and doing what they did without their best player, this team deserves a packed house. And I thought there would be a packed house. I thought there would be a packed house tonight. Doesn't sound like there's going to be. And that's frustrating. I can tell you something right now. There will be a packed house here in Ames on Thursday. And I'm not trying to diss Iowa fans. I understand Iowa State, has beaten Memphis. They've beaten Xavier. They beat Oregon State. They've got beaten Creighton. Iowa State's got 4 good wins right now, 4 Power 5 wins. Creighton, I guess Power 6. They're Big East, right? But Creighton's a good team. That's a hot Iowa State team, and I guarantee you Hilton will be packed on Thursday for that Iowa game. And when we got the tickets, my first thought was it's going to be thin. Well, not thin, but thin for an Iowa State game. I didn't expect it maybe to be completely full. Heck, Iowa State's coming off an 0-18 conference season, but I give Iowa State fans credit. I think the energy is back just like that, and it didn't take much. It just took that terrific start, which they've been able to have. They've been able to sustain it so far, almost a month in. I think it'll be packed Thursday, but I hope Iowa fans, if you're thinking about going to the game, you only have about 10 minutes to get there. Get over to Iowa City or get over to Carver. If you're not in Iowa City, I think it's too late. Get over to Carver if you can, because man alive, I don't know why you wouldn't want to see this team against a really exciting Illinois team. And this is an opportunity. I don't care if Illinois is out of the top 25. They're one of the 25 best teams in the country. All right, I'll say that about Illinois. I'm not going to say it again about Iowa, because I haven't seen enough of Iowa. But Illinois is one of the 25 best teams in the country. Again, they're dealing with some adversity with Curbelo and some injuries. But that's a really good team. So it's an opportunity for Iowa, despite the fact that it's at home. It's still a really good opportunity at a resume-building win in December. So if Iowa can win this game, it's a huge momentum builder. You hate the idea of losing tonight and then going into Ames on Thursday, losing there, because then you're talking about 3 straight losses. And I know those are 3 good teams, but you just don't want to go 0-3 in that stretch. And 2 of the 3 are on the road. I get that. This is probably Iowa. I mean, if you look at the numbers, this is Iowa's most winnable game tonight. Now, I think Iowa can beat Iowa State on Thursday. Don't get me wrong, but this is Iowa's most winnable game by the numbers tonight. So, I mean, you're at home. Again, it's an Iowa State team that's dealing with some adversity with Curbelo out. This is a game Iowa has a chance to win if Keegan's healthy. It sounds like he's going to play. And if you're listening, Hayden, let us know how Keegan looks. I know that Kevin, he commented earlier that Murray has his ankle wrapped in warmups, and that's okay. I'm sure he's going to keep that brace on there all night. Ray says they didn't let off Bohannon with Keegan out. Just his presence would have changed the game. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible how much, and this is not a diss on Jordan Bohannon. When a team decides you're not going to score on us, for the most part, they can lock him down. He just doesn't have the quickness or the athleticism. I will say this. Jordan missed some open threes on Friday, Ray. He did. He missed some wide open threes. And sometimes I feel like Jordan actually shoots the ball better when he's not wide open. Seems like he misses the wide open threes he takes, whereas if he's coming off a screen and it's a tight window and he's launching on the move, he seems to me to shoot better. But when he gets an opportunity to set his feet and he doesn't have anybody in front of him, he sometimes misses threes, which is an odd thing for a guy like that. But it's basketball, and certainly shooters are weird sometimes. Brian, appreciate you coming on here. Go Hawks, absolutely. And he adds here that a game on Monday at 6 is tough for people to get to. I get that. I understand that football, I think people are still down on football. But I would think that this would be sort of a therapeutic thing. Like if you're just down on Iowa sports, I would hope you'd want to come here and watch them beat Illinois. Now, if they lose tonight, they lose tonight. That sucks. But yeah, it is tough to get to this game. So again, hopefully maybe there'll be some latecomers. Again, we got about 6-7 minutes to go until tip-off. I want to remind everybody, if you're still here after the game, we will be on live with Coach Gary Close. Coach Gary Close and I will be on after the game. Hawkeye Howard, good to see you here this evening, buddy. And Brian says, what does Jordan leave on the court Thursday when the Hawks win? If he goes in there and beats, I didn't even think about that, Brian. I didn't even think about that. I totally forgot the fact that he's going to be back in Ames. Because, of course, we know he shouldn't be here. This is year number 6, right? So when he left his shoes on the court 2 years ago, I mean, I think he fully expected that to be his last trip to Ames. So, I mean, fully expected that, right? Because COVID wasn't even a thing at that point. So there's no way he thought he could have been back for 6 years. So I just, there's going to be a lot of boos, I think. I would be shocked if there's not. I will say this, the Iowa State fan base, I live in Ames. All right. Do I get annoyed with the Iowa State fan base at times? Absolutely. But the Michigan fan base this past week, it's not everybody, but the Michigan fan base this past week has made Iowa State fans seem like gems, angels. I mean, seriously, I've grown in my appreciation for Iowa State fans this week due to some of the Michigan fans that have come out of the woodworks. Circle Herc, must win tonight, not for the team, just for my sanity. Yeah, it's not a must win for the team. It'd be a great win for the team. I don't want them to start 0-2. These are games that I don't think I was expected to win this game. What is the line? Anybody know the line? Let me look the line up real quick before we log off. But you're absolutely right, Circle Herc. It is an opportunity. And an opportunity to soothe a lot of, again, depressed Hawkeye souls. And even if people aren't at the game, first of all, I wish the stadium would be full. I wish the arena would be full. But even if it's not, there'll be a lot of Iowa fans at home hoping that Iowa can find a way to win. Iowa's favored by 3.5. That surprises me. Honestly, that surprises me. Jordan, he says 4. I just looked at Iowa State. I think that's moved to 3.5, Jordan. And then Andrew says I was favored by 3 last time I saw, but I'm just surprised they're favored. I get there at home, and maybe that part of that is Curbelo and that issue. But, certainly had Keegan been announced as out half an hour before tip-off, that line would have moved in the opposite direction. Well, I guess it wouldn't have had time to move, but it should have moved. Absolutely should have. And again, I'm surprised by that line, but it's an opportunity, again, regardless of who's favored, for Iowa to win this game and get a really nice resume-building win. And this is a rivalry, folks. Remember, this game has been heated in recent years, so it should be fun. Again, Iowa-Illinois starting in like 2 minutes over on FS1. Fox Sports 1. We'll be here after the game, myself and Coach Gary Close, for Iowa basketball postgame with Coach Gary Close right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm here on YouTube. And again, we'll be taking your calls, taking your chats. And Hawkeye Howard, what's our chances to win this game? I would say I'm going to go Iowa in this game. I don't really make college basketball picks when football's still going, but now that football's over, Hawkeye Howard, I guess I can make this pick. I'm going to go Iowa by 5. I think they cover. So I said that I'm surprised that Iowa was favored. I still think they'll win the game. I'm just saying the national perception of this game, I'm surprised it was in Iowa's favor. Circle Herc. I also live in Ames, brings me more joy than leaving the house dressed in black and gold. Nothing brings me more joy than leaving the house dressed in black and gold. I will say this, when I moved to Ames, Circle Herc, I ditched the Iowa plates because no need to incite anger and incite rioting or anything like that. But no, I love the rivalry here as well. So good to hear you're a local guy as well. Again, appreciate you listening this evening. We'll be back at 8 o'clock following the game for Iowa postgame with Coach Gary Close. We'll talk to you soon.